Okay, Be'ezrat Hashem, Naaseh v'Natzliach. I want to welcome you to another session of our Parashat Shavua learning as we continue our in-depth learning of Parashat Shavua. This week's Parashat Tetzaveh. The name of the class is Spiritual Clothing. Be'ezrat Hashem, before we get started on tonight's class, we'll give some honorable mentions and dedications to the following people. Yitbarach Shemo Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu Be'ezrat Hashem. This class will be to the Ilun Nishmat of David ben Zohara, Yaniv ben Rina, Michel ben Zohara, Aviv ben Vivi, Esther bat Alia, Avraham Yeshua ben Sultana, Simon ben Alia, Mazal bat Luna, Meir ben Rebecca, Sultana bat Frecha, Yitzchak ben Sevilla, Nisim ben Meir, Rachel bat Bela, Yaakov ben Tamar, Susan bat Shava, Yehuda ben Aharon, Brendel bat Meir Dov, Shalom ben Zohara, and Hannah bat Chava. Also, that this will be to the Refuah Shelema of Amram ben Zohara, Lavi Rafael ben Olga, Daniel bat Mazal, Miriam bat Pesi Penina, Yaakov ben Dina, and Keren Chava bat Dona. Also, that this should be for the easy labor and delivery of Michal Naomi bat Yael Shindel, and to the success of her children, Avigail and Ayala bat Michal Naomi. Also for Zivug Hagun, for Inbal bat Jacqueline, bat Chen bat Jacqueline, Guy ben Dina, Sheina Henshi bat Leah Gittel, Eli ben Shula, Yehudit bat Sarah Imenu, Avigail bat Sarah Imenu, and Tzefania ben Batya. Also for the general success, Bacha bat Zachav, Abraham ben Daniel, Yaakov ben Daniel, Avraham and Violet Chaya, Yehuda Lev ben Tova Shindel, Desiree and Avia, Joseph Dornbush and the Dornbush family, Judah Mendel and Dov, Shmuel and Pesi Penina and family. Hashem vayech otchem, sameach otchem. Be'ezrat Hashem, that the following class will be to your success, to your bracha, all the Torah blessings to you and yours, as well as all the people in attendance. Hashem vayech otchem, sameach otchem, as we learn on a regular basis. I'm sure it's giving nachat ruach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Amen. Can I give it a name? Yael Shoshana Bat Chanafredo.
For?
Shalema.
All right. So this, in the past few weeks, last week, this week, and we have about 3 more weeks coming, the main topic is going to be the Mishkan. A lot of different things. The articles of the Mishkan, the people that are going to be working in the Mishkan, hence Aharon and his children, the measurements, the sizes, the putting together, the taking apart, the animal sacrifices, the rules, the do's, the don'ts. It's about 5 parashiot that are dealing with the same theme over and over and over and over again. Last week, we dealt with the Mishkan, and we zoomed in to the Keruvim, to the ark, and to the cherubs that are on top of the ark, and we were able to extract a beautiful lesson about the Keruvim. However, this week, in Parashat Tetzaveh, it doesn't talk about the Mishkan per se, but more about the people that work in the Mishkan, which are the Kohanim, which is Aharon HaKohen and his children. And it talks about their inauguration, their job description, and even their apparel. And tonight we're going to zoom in on the clothing of the Kohen and the Kohen Gadol. The Bigdei Kehuna. There's a pasuk in this week's parasha that says, V'asita bigdei kodesh le'aharon achicha lechavod ultifaret. Now this is very interesting, this pasuk, because it says that you shall make clothing, holy clothing, this vestments of sanctity, holy clothing to Aaron and your brother, and these clothing will be lechavod ultifaret, for glory and for splendor. So it's very interesting, because typically we don't think that garments are holy. We don't think that a shirt is holy. We don't think that a pair of pants is holy. Yet we're letting the Torah is letting us know that there is going to be a concept such as holy clothes. So, in order to get a better picture of what's going on over here, let's just try to understand how we got to this point of having a Kohen or Kohanim. Well, the journey started with Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Who was going to have the 12 tribes of Israel? Abraham had two children, Ishmael and Yitzchak. Ishmael is the psolet, Yitzchak is the ikar. Ishmael took all the negative traits of Abraham, and Yitzchak was the good gene, let's call it. Yitzchak had two children, Esav and Yaakov. Esav is the psolet, Yaakov is the ikar. So since he had some psolet in him, 12 tribes did not come out. Yaakov comes along and he has 12 children and they're all good. So Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were the avot, and the 12 children of Yaakov became Bnei Israel. From Bnei Israel, there was supposed to be a time in our history where there's going to be a Bet HaMikdash. And the people that were supposed to work in Bet HaMikdash were supposed to be the firstborns. The firstborns lost that opportunity because of Chet HaEgel. So we have over here the Levim that got rewarded for the way that they acted in Chet HaEgel because they stood up for God, they stood up for against Avodah Zarah, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Levim the Avodah of the Mishkan. From the Levim, we have an offshoot, which is the Aharon and his children. Those got elevated to a status of Kohanim. Kohanim have a special job, Levim have a special job, and Kohanim have a special job. Kohanim come exclusively from the progeny of Aharon and his children, and every single Kohen, or anybody who has Kohen DNA, traces it back all the way to Aharon a Kohen. So the Kohanim are really Levim that just got elevated in status. Now that they got to this point and they're going to be given their duties, their responsibility, one of the things that the parasha discusses is the type of sacrifices that they'll bring, their job, their duties, and of course the way that they'll be dressed. I thought it'd be very interesting to just zoom in on their clothing. The regular Kohen, which is called the Kohen Hediot, has only 4 pieces of clothing. Hediot doesn't mean he's an idiot. It means he's a common Kohen, he's a plain Kohen, standard Kohen, right? Just in case the Hebrew-English thing gets mixed up over here. And then we have the Kohen Gadol, the big kahuna, as he's called in Hawaii, right? The Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol has 8 pieces of clothing. What's the difference? Well, let's start. The bigdei kehuna of the Kohen Hediot, 4 pieces, is kutonet, avnet, migba'at, and michnasayim. Kutonet is like a long shirt, a long tunic that would start all the way from the top all the way to the ankles. Avnet is a belt that gets tied around right here, about 3/4 up. Right where the heart lies is where the belt would be tied. He has a hat, or sort of like a beanie, I would call it. Not a hat, but like a turban. Yeah. And then Michnasayim, he has an underpants that he wears, some sort of like a pants that has that goes underneath the kutonet. The Kohen Gadol has 4 additional pieces above and beyond what the regular Kohen wears. He has the Hoshen, the ephod, the me'il, and the tzitz. The Hoshen is the breastplate. So it's famous, that famous breastplate that has the 12 different stones that represents the 12 different tribes. The ephod looks like an apron, right? It ties around, and it also has these shoulder straps that you're able to connect the ephod to it, right? It's like interlocking pieces. The me'il, the jacket, is a long jacket that goes above the robe, above the tunic. So you can imagine he has a long shirt, and above that, almost like a small little jacket. Not a small jacket, a long jacket. And then he has the tzitz. The tzitz is almost like a headband that goes right over his head, right over his forehead. And that is unique and exclusive just to the Kohen Gadol. Now these special clothes are called bigdei kodesh, holy clothes. Now when it says bigdei kodesh, what makes them kodesh? So Mefarshei Pshat gives a few insights into it. He says, you know why it's called Bigdei Kodesh? Yeah.
We know, and we studied, that we're not supposed to mix shatnez. But in the Mishkan, the Kohen used to wear shatnez. Can you say the difference?
Correct.
Can you tell us the difference?
This is why we're not allowed, because Kohen used to wear.
No, that's not why we're not allowed. Can you tell us the difference why they're allowed?
Yes, but I'm going to save it for the end. Okay? Because I have to give such a long introduction again, it's going to throw us off. These classes go long anyways, but Be'ezrat Hashem bli neder, I'll tell you at the end.
Thank you.
There's even a trivia question. What's a mitzvah that you do during the day that's allowed, but at night you're sinning? Tzitzit. Tzitzit is right. Because the tzitzit is allowed to have wool and linen. And at night, because it's not a mitzvah to wear tzitzit at night, so when you're wearing it, you're wearing shatnez. Shatnez is not tzitzit during the day when it's the time for the mitzvah, you can. But for the night, it's not.
No.
Okay, let's get back on track. Why is it called Bigdei Kodesh? First of all, the reason why they're called Bigdei Kodesh, clothing that are holy, Shemitruma hamekudeshet lishmi yasu otam. Where did we get the money to create these clothes? Because remember, these were all donations. Everything came in, so everybody gave money to the Kodesh, wool for the Kodesh. Jewels for the Kodesh, everything that you make Hekdesh. What's Hekdesh? You sanctify it, you make it that it's supposed to be only for Bet HaMikdash, it becomes holy. There can't be any other use for it except for Bet HaMikdash. So once these items were given, they were sanctified, they became Kodesh, and they can't be used for anything else. So hence, Rashi says that's what they're called, Bigdei Kodesh. Just like anybody who's learning now, all in the Gemara, Baba Kama, and of course the Zevachim, and all these different Gemarot, when it talks about an animal that, like for example, you got an animal that you made Hekdesh for Bet HaMikdash. You're going right now, walking all the way from Beersheba all the way to Yerushalayim. You have a cow that you're going to sanctify to bring on the altar, right? In the middle of the way to Yerushalayim comes another cow and gores it. Oh, what happens? Is it like goring a regular animal, or since you gored a Hekdesh animal? And not only that, do you have to pay back? And if you do pay back, how much is it? And who do you pay back? Do you pay the person? You pay the Bet HaMikdash? Go into Baba Kama, one of the best masechtot, if you want, if you want to do some mental exercises with your Yiddishkeit. It's unbelievable. But nevertheless, this is what's going on over here. It's Hekdesh. The Ibn Ezra says the reason why these clothing are called Bigdei Kodesh, Ba'abushi shartu bahem b'mkom HaKodesh, because they're going to be used for the holy service in Bet HaMikdash. So anything it's going to be part of the holy service of Bet HaMikdash also takes the status of Kodesh. Another reason, לומר שאין לאדם זרותו לבוש הבגדים וכן שאינם מבשים אלא בשעת העבודה במקום העבודה. These clothing, these Bigdei Kodesh, they're not to be worn by anybody else except for the Kohanim, and they're not to be worn for any other reason except for serving Bet HaMikdash. Meaning, don't think you can put them on a Tuesday and go to a Cafe Noir to have like a meal or something. You can't do that. It's only to serve in Bet HaMikdash in the place of Avodah.
Designated for Bet HaMikdash.
Correct. Now it continues to say, למה נבדלו בגדיו של אהרון הכהן משאר בגדי הכהנים? So what's the difference between Aharon, who's Kohen Gadol, and the Kohanim? Why is his clothing are on a higher level? That it says lechavod v'litif'aret, right? It's going to be for a elevated level of honor and for splendor. This is the Ramban says, שכיוון שנקרא הוא מלאך השם צבקות, לכן מצווה הוא להלבישו בבגדי מלכות כדי שנכבד גבוה אצל ההמון. He says because he's going to be the highest level Kohen serving in Bet HaMikdash, he needs to look different. He needs to look royal. He needs to look fancier than anybody put together. That it's noticeable that when you look at him, he is the most hashub person in the room, hashub person in Bet HaMikdash, and he should look like it. Okay.
Is that also because he goes into Kodesh HaKodashim? He's the only one that goes in there?
So it requires him to have certain things when he goes to Kodesh HaKodashim. But right now we're just saying, why does he have to look different? Let all the Kohanim wear the white. Why does he have to wear the different things? So there's a reason. First of all, the way that he looks, let him look royal. Let him look above and beyond any other person in the in Bet HaMikdash. That when you look at him, he looks honorable and he looks fancy. More than any other person within the Jewish nation. Ma'am Loez touched on this point and he said something very, very interesting.
No, Rabbi, the bling bling stuff from there.
Huh?
The bling bling. The bling bling.
Bling bling start from there. We just do it for different things.
Yeah, for sure.
He says, you know why they were supposed to be mechubadim and fuarim? Why the clothing of the Kohen was supposed to be so honorable and so royal looking? Because in Bigdei Malchut, these are clothing that a king would wear. Meaning these are royal pieces of clothing. Just like when you see lehavdil, when you see, that the only popular form that we see in current events is the king and queen of England or the royal family in England. You see how they dress up. I myself don't think they look like kings and queens. Like every once in a while, maybe they put on the big what do you call it? The big cape and the crown. But every other time they look like they're wearing like a fancy Gucci business suit and a business hat. They don't look so royal. You can go into any department store and copy that look. I'm talking about over here. This is something you don't buy off the shelf. This is not something you get off the rack. Right? You can't find this in Nordstrom rack. וכן רואים אותה שבשעה שעשה אחשוורוש משתה גדול לכל שריו ועבדיו. Here's a nice little tidbit for Purim. Remember when Achashverosh did his feast, that he invited all of his ministers and all of his servants, and he was showing off all his wealth. He was showing off all of his all the wealth and the things that he amassed in his kingdom. Lavash Bigdei Kohen. We know that he wore over there the clothing of who? Of the Kohen Gadol. Shayu b'rishoto acheshech havet hamikdash, because after the destruction of the temple, he was able to get a hold of the clothing of the Kohen Gadol. V'niach et bigdei malchuto. He let go of his royal garb, of his royal apparel. V'lavash bgadim elu, and he wore the clothing of the Kohen Gadol, because they were much higher, much fancier, much more honorable and respectable, and more important than the clothes that he wore. So you can see that even a king that has all the best apparel that money can buy, he probably has his own tailor and the best fabrics and the best designers and stylists, yet he said, no, I put all that in my closet, I'm going to wear the bgadim of the Kohen Gadol. So you can imagine these clothing that are called lechavod v'letifare. They really lived up to their name. Now, when we say that these are spiritual clothing automatically hint to us that these clothing have power. The tunic had power, the avnet had power, the tzitz had power. Every single piece of clothing had some sort of a spiritual power, which is unlike anything else. We don't have that in regular, right? We don't have any Nikes that can make us fly, right? We don't have any sort of like a jacket that can predict the future, right? We don't have these things. But the Kohen Gadol not only had this unique articles of clothing, but they also had the power to atone. So here we are, we can see that as Jewish people, again, unique things that are exclusive to us as a nation, that we had at one time even pieces of clothing that had spiritual powers. What kind of spiritual powers? We'll get started on that right now. It says, Shmonat habgadim shebarnu me'altam hayta shiyu mechaprim u'shmona min ha'avirot. He says the reason why the Kohen Gadol had specifically 8 pieces of clothing, nothing more, nothing less, is because it atones for 8 sins. And not only that, there's a big question also, typically, when if you wanna ask a good question every single week in Parashat Shavua, you always say, why is Parashat Tetzaveh talking about the Kohanim's clothing, where last week's parasha was talking about the Mizbeach? Chazal always ask this question. Why is the subject of the animal sacrifices in the Mizbeach juxtaposed to the clothing of the Kohen? So there's an answer to that. כשם שהקורבנות מחפרים, כך בגדי כהונה מחפרים. Just like the animal sacrifices are able to atone for a people's sins, also the clothing of the Kohen Gadol are able to atone for a person's sins. And that's why they're juxtaposed. That's why you have Parashat Terumah that talks about the Mizbeach, close to Parashat Tetzaveh that talks about the Kohen's clothing, because both of them atone for the sins of the Jewish people. As it says, Zot HaTorah la'olah, la'mincha, ve'lachatat, ve'la'asham, ve'la'miluim, u'lzevach ha'shelamim. Right? And then that's what was said in the last week's parasha, that this is the Torah, this is the instruction, this is the menu of all the sacrifices that the Jewish people can use when they come to Beit HaMikdash to atone for their sins. And right after it says, Kach et Aaron ve'et banav ito ve'et habegadim. And right after it says, take Aaron and his children and their clothing. Keshem shemechaper kol min korban, kad mechaprim bigdei kehuna. Just like all these different types of sacrifices atone for a person's sin, similarly are the clothing of the Kohen atone for the Jewish people's sins. Right there it's a chidush. Right there it's a chidush. Right now there's no way that it's almost impossible to know that a piece of clothing was going to atone for sins. So when I started to see that there's a lot more beneath the surface, I said it's time to dig. And once you dig, you're going to find a lot of beautiful things beneath the surface. So let's start. Let's start with the first 4 things that the regular Kohen has, which is the 4 common pieces of clothing, and then we'll add the 4 of the Kohen Gadol. Kutonet mechaperet al shfichut damim. It says the kutonet, the tunic, the shirt, it atones for murder. It atones for people spilling blood. Where do we get that? Because remember the Yosef's brothers, they dipped his kutonet in what? In blood. Comes the kutonet of the Kohen and says it's going to atone for any shfichut damim that the Jewish people will do. However, I'm not going to go deep into all of them, but there's going to be about 2 or 3 where I'm going to go a little bit deeper, because it's good to know this little stipulation about this article. Like, for example, when it comes to Jewish law, a person, you can't charge him, you can't take him to court, you can't make him culpable unless you give him warning. Also in Hilchot Shabbat, right? Let's say, for example, a guy is right now in his backyard and he's planting seeds and he's plowing and he's pouring water on it, right? And this is by law, he's not keeping Shabbat. And when a person doesn't keep Shabbat, what's the punishment for not keeping Shabbat? Karet, right? However, he can do that and still not be responsible for karet. Why? Because if nobody warned him, if he didn't have a hatra'ah, it doesn't count. Meaning, a person needs to come and tell him, hey, Moishi, it's Shabbos. What are you doing? You can't plow, you can't plant, you can't water your plant. It's Shabbat. He was warned. If he says, I don't care, I'm going to do it anyways, that's it. He's done. But if you didn't warn him beforehand, you can't take him to court. He's not liable. He's got, I wouldn't say a free pass, but he's not in the same situation as somebody who got warned. Similarly, here's this point. Somebody murdered somebody, but they didn't give him a warning. שלפני שמתחייב אדם בבית דין, יש להטות בו ולומר לו, ראה, אם תהרוג את פלוני, תהרג. Meaning, in order to take him to bed din and say, hey, charge him, he's a murderer, you have to first tell him, hey, Moishi, don't take that gun and shoot David. you're going to become a murderer. You're not allowed to kill Jews in Israel. You're not allowed to kill people. You're going to get in trouble. If somebody did not warn him about it, then he's not going to have the same deen. Before you can take him to a court of law, he has to be warned. So in a reality where we get into this situation, that a guy murdered somebody, but he wasn't warned by somebody, comes the Kohen with his kutonet and is mechaper al shfichut damim. What type of shfichut damim? This case. A case like this.
Doesn't the Torah warn already by the laws? Tells you do not murder. Isn't that a warning already?
You could say that, but there's many different things that that require us to have witnesses or people that warn. It's just to show you how merciful the Torah is. We don't look to kill people. We look to give them many chances. Let's go to the next one. Amichnasayim, the pants.
Can I have a question, please?
Yeah.
But the person has to do teshuvah, I imagine.
I don't want to get into it.
Oh.
I don't want to get to it. There's different classes we do. Right now, I just want to talk about the clothing. But, because it's such a juicy topic, we could 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there, before that it's 11 o'clock and our head was all over the place. I want to stay focused. At the end of the class, I'm open to any questions. המכנסיים מחפרים על עוון הזנות. He says pants. What do they atone for? They atone for zenut. What's znut? Prostitution, promiscuity, indecency. That's what the pants atone for. As it says, ועשה להם מכנסי בד לכסות בשר ערווה. And also the reason why even the Kohen Gadol is wearing pants. For what? He's got a tunic down to his ankles. For what does he have to wear pants underneath that? To cover the erva. As a matter of fact, also the mizbeach. The mizbeach is a ramp. A ramp, you have to go, for the builders in the house. You know what does a ramp go? It's like an inch a foot to go for a ramp to go up, right? So if I want to go up 10 feet, it's a super long thing. I could put up stairs and take up a lot less space. Why don't we do stairs in the mizbeach? Why do we do a ramp? So when the Kohen Gadol walks, you can never see underneath his clothing. He's always covered. That's the tzniut. When a person stairs, you can see, what's beneath there sometimes. So we see that the Michnasayim was a chaper on znut. Why? כי מכנסה לחוד בשר ערווה, היינו עוון הזנות. מצנפת, the hat, מכפרת על עוון הגאווה. The hat atones for a person's haughtiness, pride. שהעוון זה גדול מאוד. This is a very, very big sin. Somebody who's a gaividik, somebody who has a lot of ga'ava, somebody who has a lot of pride, somebody who's very haughty, somebody who's walking around very cocky all the time, thinks he's a big shot. It's a very big avon. As a matter of fact, here I want to drill down a little bit more, spend some more time over here, because what is the avon of ga'ava? What is the sin of being haughty? שורש רע המתפשט בעניין רע. והוא מביא הרבה עוונות גדולים. He says this bad character trait of גאווה, it's the root of all evil, and it spreads and is able to increase a person's sins in a lot of different spaces in his life. גורם לשנאה בליבו, מדבר עליו לשון הרע. He says that this negative character trait of ga'ava creates hatred in a person's heart against his friend. He then leads him to speak lashon hara about him, evil gossip, evil speech, gossip, slander on his friend. And we know that leads to one of the biggest sins of all, which is lashon hara. So we see it starts with ga'ava, it goes to sin'ah, then it goes to lashon hara, and then it goes to it goes from sin'ah, lashon hara, and lashon hara is one of the biggest sins. So we see over here that one thing trickles to the other if you have this bad character trait. And it says that ga'ava, some people think it's not such a big deal. It says that having a lot of pride, walking around very cocky, being very haughty, A lot of people just think that I'm just confident. I know what I'm saying. I know, I'm very sure of myself. It says that having this negative trait of ga'ava, which is the complete opposite of being humble and humility, the complete opposite of that, is considered keneged shalosh ha'avirot ha'chamurot. When a person has ga'ava, it's as if he's performing 3 of the worst sins, the 3 cardinal sins: avodah zara, gilu arayot, v'shfichut damim. Could you imagine? Bet HaMikdash got destroyed. So when you see a person that has a gaivadik, you know what he's like? It's as if he's performing avodah zarah, idol worship, spilling blood, and improper relationship. All in one. That's what that negative character trait equates to. That's why you have to stay away from it completely. That's what we see. The Torah highlights, what's the number one example of a Torah Jew? Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was the most humble in the world, the complete opposite of this. Furthermore, it says that many sins stem from this bad character trait of ga'ava. He says not only does it affect him negatively, it affects his soul, it affects him physically, spiritually and physically, it affects him negatively, and he dies before his time. A person who has a lot of ga'ava dies before his time. Because every single time that a person acts out of gaiva, it is as if he is worshipping an idol, and it's as if he is a heretic, as if kafar ba'ikar, as if he's going against all that the Torah stands for. As it says in the Gemara, Masechet Sotah, Kol hamidga'eh eno omed l'tchiyah. Anyone who has this bad character trait doesn't even come back in the resurrection. וכיוון שהעוון גאווה גדול כל כך, מאבד כל רכושו של האדם בעולם הבא. He says, because this is so frowned upon in the heavens, this bad character trait, he says that he loses all of his, let's just say, credit in the Shamayim and Olam Haba. He goes to Olam Haba, he's bankrupt over there. He's got nothing. And he said, what happened? I did this. I walked to an old lady across the street. I gave 2 cents to the tzedakah. Where's my credit? I put tefillin 5 times in my life. Where's my this? No. Your gava wiped out everything.
Wow.
And look at this. Anybody who has the complete opposite of that, who's humble, who has humility, in the eyes of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, he appears as if as if he offered all the sacrifices all put together. So all the sacrifices, Chatat, Olah, Shelamim, all those things, when a person is humble, it's as if he took imagine him walking to Bet HaMikdash with 50 cows, putting them out on the altar. Just being humble is the same thing. As it says in Perek Tehillim, on the 51st chapter in Tehillim, Zivchei Elohim, Ruach Nishbara. Lev nishbar v'nitke, Elohim lo tivzeh. One of my favorite pasukim of all time. If you can internalize this pasuk, it's a secret to life. Zivchei Elohim, the sacrifices that God yearns for, Ruach nishbara, is a broken soul. Why? Why does Hashem prefer a broken individual versus an animal sacrifice? Because an animal sacrifice, okay, the guy sinned, he brings the behemah, he puts his hand over it, he says, I'm sorry. Okay, he's going through the motions, as they say. But a person with a broken heart, you know what advantage he has? He's real, he's genuine. Anybody with a broken heart, you speak to him, he speaks from where? He speaks from the heart. I think that the time that people are most real and most genuine, most true, is when they're brokenhearted. Because they're broken. They're at the bottom. They've lost it all. They've got nothing more to lose. So Hashem says, Zivchei Elokim, the best sacrifice that you can give to Hashem is a broken heart, is a broken spirit. Lev Nishbar, a broken spirit and a broken heart. V'nitke Elohim, and the one that is downtrodden, the one that is broken, the one that's like right now crying because of all what life has done to him. V'nitke Elokim lo tivzeh. The person who's down, Elokim lo tivzeh. He will not turn him down. As we know, Rachmana li babai. Hashem wants the heart. Anybody who's able to have a genuine interaction, genuine prayer, genuine tefillah, genuine conversation with Kadosh Baruch Hu from the heart, Rahmana liba ba'eh, he will never get turned back. Because that's what Hashem wants. Hashem wants a real, genuine connection. Sometimes what we do, we just say the words. We don't even really mean it. Sometimes we say the words and our mind is even somewhere else. You know, for the mind, the heart, and the speech to connect, it's called being real. Hashem can't wait for you to be real. Can't wait for you to be genuine with Him. As a matter of fact, in Asher Shvei Betecha, it says it over there also. It's another version of what we're saying over here. What is this in Asher Shvei Betecha? Right after Potech et Yadecha, what does it say? Karov Adonai lechol kore'av lechol shika'uhu be'emet. Hashem is very, very close to those that call out to Him. But you know which ones? The ones that call out to Him truthfully, be'emet. He's going to do the will of His of the ones that fear Him. Vet Shabbatam, and their outcry, Yishma, He's going to hear it. Ve'yoshiem, and He'll give them the salvation. It's so hard to be real nowadays. It's so hard. Back in the days, that's the power they had. They were genuine. They were real. They were focused. They had a relationship with God. Here we're like in shul. We say 150 pages in the morning, and another 100 at night, and who knows what we're saying. Sometimes, right after you close the book, did I do the Amidah? Did I do the Amidah? Did I do Modim? Did I bow? I did not bow. You ever get that? It's like so crazy. Do you ever go to the bathroom, do Netilah, and you stay there frozen? I did a Sheretza, I didn't do a Sheretza. Your hands are still wet, you can't tell? You can't tell if you did a Sheretza, you didn't do a Sheretza? That's how disconnected we are. So we see over here that, So it says over here, we're trying to make a point that how do you get to the point, what does Hashem have to do sometimes? He has to break a person down. He has to bring him to pieces. Why? Be real already. Talk to me. Enough of this fake version of yourself. And then what happens? Hashem hears him and He gives the salvation. But at least He gave him a hard lesson of how to interact with God, how to talk.
It's a gift.
Not only that, imagine a father and a child. I always, when it comes to Hashem and us, I always take a father and a child. Imagine your child is talking to you, but, okay, Abba, I'm sorry. Oh, fine, okay, I'll do it. You know how teenagers or pre-teenagers, you know he's not even close to being genuine about what he's saying. He's not. That's how he sounds. He sounds like these annoyed teenagers with God. Okay, I'll say Shema. You know? Like these annoyed teenagers with God. So anyways, just to make a point over here, okay? And the antithesis, the paradigm example of who is a person to look up to, that was real, that was genuine, that was able to be humble. Va'ish Moshe anav me'od. He was anav, he was humble. And the Torah goes and adds an extra word, me'od, a lot, very. Mikol ha'adam, more than any other person. Asher penei adama. And as Mishle, Shlomo HaMelech, the smartest man to ever live, what did he say in Mishle? Reshit chokhmah yirat Hashem. The smartest, the first thing to being smart in this world is fear God. Meaning, how can you go around walking around, look at me, watch me, look what I can do? What are you looking to do? All glory goes to Hashem. What are you doing? Yirat Hashem. Reshit chokhmah yirat Hashem. Let's move on to the next one. Let's move on to the avnet. The avnet was the belt. The avnet was mechaper al hirurim ra'im. It would atone for negative thoughts. This is so interesting. Okay? Why? Because we're going to learn a concept over here that HaKadosh Baruch Hu metzaref machshava tova lema'aseh. You had an idea to do a mitzvah. Oh, you know what? This lady, she just had a baby. I'm going to go and I'm going to make her chalot for Shabbat. And you didn't do it. You forgot. What happened? Hashem says, it's okay. It's okay. I know you had a good thought. I'm going to make it like you did. I'll never forget this lesson is something that many years ago I used it to cheer myself up. What happened during the time of Sukkot? We know we have Hoshana Rabbah, the Tikkun Hoshana Rabbah, that we stay up all night. I miscalculated. I thought it was one day after. So one day, I'm coming the next morning to shul, and I'm all excited. I'm there with my book. I'm there with my talit. I'm with my everything. And all of a sudden, I walk into the shul, 100 people there. All of them disheveled. They've been up all night, shtagging. I said, I can't believe I missed Hoshana Rabbah. I can't believe I missed the tikkun. My friend comes to me and he tells me this. HaKadosh Baruch Hu metzarev machshava lema'aseh, don't worry. Slaps me on the back. He says, come pray with us. I felt such a release. Felt so good. I mean, don't get me wrong. I didn't want to miss it. But nevertheless, Hashem connects a good thought lema'aseh. Does it work the other way? Can I have a bad thought that I want to kill somebody? And Hashem says, chaber machshava lema'aseh? No. HaKadosh Baruch Hu lo mechaber machshava lema'aseh when it comes to something negative. Except for one thing. Good, you don't know. Huh? Gilui Arayos? Close, but no cigar. Almost. Idolatry.
Adultery, yes.
Very good. Very good. Look what it says over here. Ha'avnet. Now keep in mind, why is this about Hirurim Ra'im? Why is this particular piece of clothing going to be the one that's connected to bad thoughts? Because the avnet is tied right over here. You know what's right over here? Your heart. Your heart sends messages to your mind. Right? What's in your person's heart is in his mind. So it says, Shechoshev Adam Hirur Avira, Avon Kashe Hu Mikol. This is very bad when a person thinks about sinning. Even though that he did nothing. He says, you might think about different things, but you know there's one thing that you also have to watch out for. When a person thinks about things that are improper, the guy thinks about the girl, the secretary, the lady in the store, the person in the magazine, somebody from his thing. He's thinking about it. All of a sudden, what happens? He goes to sleep, and all of a sudden, zera batala. He wasted his seed. Seminal emission in the middle of the night. He said, hey, you have bad machshavot. Look what happened. We can't forgive you for that. That's another thing that the person said, that what happens. A bad hirhur, bad thinking. Even though he didn't do it. He did something with the lady. He didn't do nothing with the lady. But because he thought about it, he ending up in the same result. If he was with the lady, he'd spill seed. Now he wasn't with the lady and he still spilled seed. That's how you have to be very careful. Now, and this is a very grave sin, spilling seed. So even though the HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not connect a bad thought to a maaseh, like we said that he does that in a positive way the other way, הרי זה בשאר עבירות כגון שעכשיו לגנוב ולא גנב, חלל שבת ולא חילל, או להרוג את חברו ודומה, והמחשבה לא עשתה פרי ואינה כלום. He says, even if a person says, I'm not going to keep Shabbat, or I want to steal and he didn't steal, I want to not keep Shabbat and he didn't keep Shabbat, he wanted to kill his friend, he didn't kill his friend, all these negative thoughts, and his thoughts didn't come to action, nothing happened. Aval, a thought that gives fruits, a thought that eventually there is an outcome. Meaning, I thought about killing that guy, I didn't kill him. Okay, nothing came of that. I thought of stealing, I didn't steal. Okay, nothing came of that. But there are some thoughts that eventually something does come out of it. What? We said, sexual thoughts, something might come out of it later on. The guy would spill seed. שזה הירור שמצמיח פירות, כגון שראה טומאה בלילה, נחשב כאילו עשה במזיד חס וחלילה. It counts for him as if he did it on purpose. Here, we have sort of like a transition that is connecting the clothing of a Kohen Gadol to a Kohen Hediot. So now we just went through the four. I'll just review it very quickly. The kutonet was for shfichut damim, for murder. The pants, the michnasayim, was for znut, for prostitution, promiscuity, indecency. The mitznefet, the hat, was for geava, for being prideful, haughty. The avnet, we said, for hirurim ra'im, right? For bad thoughts, chas v'shalom. That's something that the person thinks in his heart. It goes to the mind, and eventually it yields a damaging effect. Now, when we come to the Kohen Gadol, the Kohen Gadol has 4. One of the things that he has is the avnet also. He also has the avnet. He also has the belt. But here, it's a little bit different. Avneto shel Kohen Gadol haya mechaper al hiurim ra'im, שמאחר שהיה חוגו על הלב והוא שיכפר היורי הלב. He says he used to also atone for negative thinking. But it was והחושן היה מכפר על עיוות הדין. And the choshen that was around the same area would atone for distorting justice. שאם היה דין מעוות הדין, שאם היה דיין מעוות הדין וחזר בתשובה, היה החושן מכפר לו על עוון זה. He says if the judge sort of like that's the word that I'm looking for, if the judge
Chapel?
no, that's about Mavet. He distorted the justice. He distorted the justice. He distorted the deen, and he went back. He says, "I'm sorry." The choshen, which was the breastplate, would atone for him distorting the deen and making teshuvah. Okay, you forgive for that. מפני הטעם הזה נקרא חושן המשפט. כיוון שהיה מכפר עוון המשפט. That's why it's called חושן המשפט. Also the book of law in halacha, it's called חושן המשפט. Is somebody who wanted to distort judgment. So it would not only be for thoughts that were impure, like we said, for spilling seed, but also for impure thoughts in wanting to distort justice. Okay, we go to the ephod. Ephod, we said, atones for avodah zara. Now we said that the ephod is that apron. It would atone for idolatry. Why? שבכל מיני עבירות כגון גזלה ורציחה אם חשב האדם לגזול ולהרוג, אין מחשבו מצטרפת למעשה. אבל במחשבת עבודה זרה, נחשבת המחשבה כמעשה. We just said that if a person has bad thoughts, he wants to steal, he wants to kill, he wants to rob, he wants to do all these different things, you thought about it, it means nothing. It was just a bad thought. Doesn't count. Except for one thing. אם מחשבת עבודה זרה, נחשבת כמעשה. If a person thinks, I want to go bow down to the Buddha, just thinking about it, it's as if he did. I want to go and, I don't know, smell the incense that they have over here in that altar, which is a form of avodah zarah, counts for him as well. Even if he just had a thought that he wanted to do it, it's as if he did it. Look how careful we have to be with our thoughts about idolatry. It counts as if he did it.
What's considered idolatry right now?
Idolatry?
Like now.
Anything that's not Judaism, because Christianity is idolatry, Buddhist is idolatry, all the things that they're bowing down to, whether it's a statue.
What about idolatry for people like idolatry just for material changes?
Right, that's what they have idolatry.
Gambling.
That's for idolatry for idolatry.
There are people.
And all the people,
Or famous people, for example.
all the people that like to worship the dollar, they
Or
even have a
famous
store for
people,
them.
for example. Same thing, no? Famous
Huh?
people. Famous
Yeah,
people.
you could
same thing.
listen.
It's not officially. It's not officially.
What?
Meaning, let's say, like this passion, this going crazy about
So,
materialism is not
so yes and
officially
no.
religion.
No, wait, yes and no. Okay, I heard this one time from someone who's not religious, Jewish but not religious, but she made a great point. He says, she said to me, I'm not sure she said to me. She said, religion is what you do. Religion is what you do. It's as simple as that. You get up in the morning, you pray, you carry yourself in a shirt. It's what you do. So if all day long it's all about money, that's your religion. If all day long it's sports, it's what you do. If all day long it's alcohol, it's what you do. If all day long you gamble, that's your religion. That's what you follow. That's your God.
Yeah.
In the Torah it says, Elohe kesef v'zahav. It says the gods of money. Because they know that the power of money, that people will chase the money like as if it was a god. Even nowadays, rabbis have come out and said that people treat money more importantly, the way that we treat the religion or God. So if a guy has right now the opportunity to go and open up his office at 8 o'clock in the morning so he can get a jump start on his day so he can make a lot of money, or go to a minyan to worship God, and he says, no, I'm going to go to the office, then who's he worshiping? He's worshiping the almighty dollar. And that's why in America they connected God to money. In God we trust, on the dollar. What's the connection? What's the connection? Why do we have to have God on money? Nevertheless, we see that over here we have to be very, very careful with thinking about idolatry. They say that nowadays it's not like it used to be, but back in the days there used to be a yetzer in the world. The rabbis prayed for it to get nullified. There was a yetzer, there was like this desire that you wanted to hold that getchka in your hand. You wanted to have it in your pocket. You wanted to go into that place. People there was a thing for it. There was a desire for it. And the rabbis saw that it was too strong. Too strong. He said that I even heard one time they said that if they kept it going today, everybody would be lifting up their skirts and running to the idol houses and bowing down to them. There was some sort of a yetzer over there, some sort of a pull, a magnetic pull to go and worship Avodah Zarah. It was a real thing. Nowadays we don't feel it because it's no longer as strong, but nevertheless, the ephod atoned for that. Hameil haya mechaper al avon lashon hara. So now the coat would atone for evil speech. As we know that the coat on the bottom had these little bells that would always sound when the Kohen was walking. Lachen ra'u היה לכפר על לשון הרע שהוא avon shel kol, and it would atone for lashon hara, which is a sin that is connected to sound. Here also, the Rav Yaakov Kuli from Mamloeh says that this is also one of those sins, Lashon Hara, that is great, like the three cardinal sins of Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arot, Shfichut Damim. People think that it's nothing, but it's as grave and serious as those three. Last one is the tzitz, and that's the headband that was on the Kohen Gadol's head, Mechaper al avon azut panim. This atones for the sin of being brazen. When a person is a chutzpahdik, right? Chutzpan, no respect. He's brazen. Hainu adam she'en lo boshet panim, a person that is not embarrassed. V'ume'ez panav she'azut echad midot hamigunot. It's one of the ugliest characteristic traits that a person can have. U'meviat adam she'esh bo midah zol harbe averot. And anybody who's brazen, anybody who has azut panim, this guy goes down the path of tons of sins because of that character trait. Since he's not embarrassed of anything, the Yetzirah easily deceives him to go and do many, many sins. He's not embarrassed from other people. A person who's not embarrassed from somebody else, he is easily can do things that are disrespectful, and not feel shy or embarrassed by sinning. And over here the rabbi gives us a few warnings. He says you should know that because of this sin of azut panim, the grains stop. Why? Because one of the foundations of Judaism is hakarat hatov. What's hakarat hatov? Being grateful, having gratitude. Somebody did good for you, say thank you and never forget it. And go back and say thank you again. Even though he helped you today, make sure to go back in 3 months from now and tell him, hey, I never forgot what you did for me. Thank you very much. Right? And then we always say again, hakarat hatov, like if somebody ever set you up with your wife, on your anniversary, send him a card too. Right? If somebody give you open up a bank account for, opened up an account for you in your business, every time that the guy pays you an invoice, send them a box of chocolates. Well, you gave me such a good account. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Or at least call and tell them, it's the gift that keeps on giving. It was such a great intro. We're still working. 5 years after, we're still working together. People like to hear that. Hakarat hatov. It's not, somebody does you a favor and it's like they owed it to you. Also, God owes you nothing. Thank God. You should be grateful that you got a free ticket to ride in this world, right? Even what do you call it? Even Epcot Center and Universal charge you $150 per day. Over here, Kadosh Baruch Hu charges you $0 to live what? To live a life where you have you can have vision, and you have hearing, and you can breathe, and you can eat, and you can have children, and you can go to the beach, and you can play tennis, and you can learn Torah, and you can have a chavruta. All these things. How much? What's the bill, God? Zero. Just be a tzaddik.
Not just that, they give you money to give tzedakah from himself. So you basically give him back.
He gives you. You're giving him back what he gave you.
Yeah, man, like, what is that?
Unbelievable. So the least that you can do is what? Hakarat tov. When you don't have hakarat tov, what is that called? Azut panim. You're chatzuf. So it says when a person doesn't have hakarat tov, and he's not being grateful to everything that Kadosh Baruch Hu, so what does the Kadosh Baruch Hu do? He just turns off the faucet. No more water, right? Hollywood, the water works off. Imagine a life with no water. Oh, you can't. One day without shower, one day without coffee in the morning, you can't survive, right?
No problem. Coffee's a
So
problem.
Kadosh Baruch Hu said, no problem. You don't want to say thank you. You don't want to be grateful. So he stops the rains. He says, when a generation becomes azut panim, one of the signs is that he stops the rains. There's a drought. Because nothing is needed in this world more than rain. And Baruch Hashem, in the Torah class, we spoke a lot about the beauty of rain and that bracha and what it means to us. Okay, so this finishes our first section of introduction to the clothing of the Kohen. Now, I want to ask a big question. Why are clothes used to atone for sins?
For what?
Why are the clothes being used as a tool? God says, use this to atone for your sins.
Something needs to receive that instead of that. Take the punishment instead
Fine, good answer. Give me something else.
Adam and Chava were sinned that they didn't realize that they're naked.
Pessy, you've been coming here for too long. You know everything. That's it. Can't surprise you with nothing anymore.
Isn't it something temporary? You could take off and put on.
No, Pessy hit it on the head. That's it. She got it. She got it. It's but by the way, a little tip to these classes: every time I ask a question, if you say Adam and Chava, it's usually right. Because everything always comes back to the original sin, whether you like it or not. Yeah. Okay. So let's give an answer. Why are clothes used to atone for our sins? Because I would say something else. Give me a different thing that atones for the sins. I don't know. Think of anything else but clothes. Why would it be clothing? It says, בגדי הכהן באו לכפר עוונו של אדם הראשון. Because the clothing of the Kohen came to atone for the original sin. קודם החטא הוא היה לבוש כותנות אור. Before the sin, the person was wearing, Adam Arishon was wearing kotnot or. He was completely made of light. He illuminated. אחרי החטא, היה להם במקום זה עלי תאנה. It says, after he sinned, they had fig leaves that covered them. בהמשך, ריחם עליהם הקדוש ברוך הוא ועשה להם כותנות אור. After the sin, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had mercy on them, and he created for them clothing that was made from leather instead of light. Or is also skin. He replaced the illuminating form that they were in and replaced it with skin. Or you could say kutnot or, which is actually clothing made from leather. כמו שכתב השלה הקדוש, ולכן יש עניין לבישת בגדים אלו. That's why the Shla Kadosh brings that reasoning. Something else that is very interesting. The Mefarshim ask, why are clothing called beged? Why is in Hebrew the word for clothing is beged? Beged in Hebrew, in modern Hebrew, is beged is clothing. But if you take the root of the word beged, the shorish of the word is the same letter as of bagad, livgod, to betray. So why is begadim called beged? Because they betrayed. הוא מלשון בגידה, כי על ידי הבגד עלולים לטעות בפני אדם. He says, what happened? Clothing are tricky. He says the reason why we even have clothing in this world and it's part of our day-to-day is because Adam Arishon betrayed God. He went against the word of God. And because of that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because of his bgida, because of his betraying God, Hashem gave him beged, a clothing to cover him. They use the same shorish, the same root of the word to connect that the reason why we have clothing is because of betrayal. Beged because of the begida. Okay, But he says that because clothing come with the whole point of betrayal that's connected to it, watch out from clothes. Clothes are deceiving. Why? This is also very, very interesting. Shvila Pinchas, beautiful desha over here, says, I just want to make sure. So why? Well, you know what? I'll finish this point without before going to this one. The reason why we have to watch out for clothing is because you could take a Muslim that could just take off his whole hijab or whatever they were, the kafia and this and that. He puts on a kippah. He walks into a shul, and he could because he's dressed like a Jew, you can think that he's a Jew. But is he? No. Be careful with clothes; they can trick you, right? Similarly, you can have a guy that we'll have another example. Somebody that is right now in the army. He's a recruit. He just got there day one. He went into the closet. He went and he got the clothing of who? Of the general. With 3 stripes, this and that. You walk in. They think he walks into the room. Everybody stands up. Is he a general? No, he's not. This is his first day on the job. But what? The begadim can fool you. So be careful. Clothing have the ability to fool a person because why? Because of how it started. The first time that ever started clothing came through a betrayal. Let's go to Shvila Pinchas. He has an unbelievable point over here. He goes a little bit into depth. He says, Shmona bigdei kohen היו נגד 8 מצוות שנצטווה אדם קודם שחטא. He says, you know why the Kohen Gadol has exactly 8 pieces of clothing? It corresponds to the 8 mitzvot, 8 instructions that Adam Rishon was given on day 1, and he went against. וחזר וקיים אותם. ונתלבש בהם לאחר שחטא ועשה תשובה. It brings the Gemara Masechet Orivim. It says that Adam Rishon made a big teshuvah over transgressing over 8 sins. These are the ones. ויצב השם אלוקים על האדם לאמור מכל עץ הגן אכול תאכל. We know that Hashem gave him the ability to eat from every single tree in the garden except from עץ הדת ורע. ועוד נצטווה בשבע מצוות בני נוח. So this is a chidush. Adam HaRishon was instructed to do 8 things. 1, eat from every single tree except from the tree of knowledge, good and bad, and the 7 Noahide laws. The 7 Noahide laws that today the Noahides follow was the first set of rules that Adam HaRishon got. In Masechet Sanhedrin, on the 56th page on the second side, it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded the Noahide laws to be Avodah Zarah, Birkat Hashem, Dinin, Gilu Arayot, Shfichut Damim, Gezel, Evri Min HaChai. The 7 Noahide laws are that they can't do idol worship, they are not allowed to curse God, they must have a law system, they can't have improper relations. They also have a list of people that they can't have relations with, murder, thievery, and to Eve and cannibalism. You can't eat Evri Min HaChai. So Adam HaRishon had all those laws, those 7 Noahide laws, plus don't eat from this tree. At that time, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded him these laws, Adam HaRishon was wearing kutnot or with an aleph. He was wearing spiritual clothing that were made out of light. Levush ruchani, spiritual garments. After the sin, הלבישו הקדוש ברוך הוא עם כותנות אור באות עין. After he sinned, HaKadosh Baruch Hu replaced the spiritual garments with physical garments that were made from leather. So we see that in the beginning of time, there was a reality of spiritual garments. Fast forward to this week's parasha, we have spiritual garments make a comeback. We ask the question, why do we have holy clothing? Why do we have clothes that have kedusha in them? You know why? Because before they were also the way in the beginning of time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted the people to have kutnot or, that everybody should have spiritual garments, holy garments, that their whole being should be holy. Since Adam Rishon sinned, then we went from spiritual clothing to kutnot or, and comes the Kohen Gadol and says, wait, let me fix what Adam Rishon ruined, so we can bring it back to where we have spiritual clothing. The Zohar brings everything that we just said in Aramaic, Betchila kutnot or, Acher shechatu kutnot or, same thing, but it continues to bring the Shla Kadosh that says that this is the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu was instructed by Kadosh Baruch Hu, V'asita bigdei kodesh leharon achicha lechavod v'letif'aret. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu was instructed to create these clothing for Aaron HaKohen in order for him to atone for these sins. The Shla Kadosh continues to say, it says over here, שהזרות באה לאדם ראשון מכוח זוהמת הנחש וצריך לתיקון. He says the reason why Adam Rishon was distanced from God, distanced from Gan Eden, is because the Nachash, we know that the whole original sin, the Nachash, he put a Zohama, some sort of a contamination, spiritual negative contamination into existence through Hava and through Adam, and it needed a rectification. He says, so the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, okay, we'll do the rectifications from the Kutnot Or Be'alef, V'azuamat Nachash Nefech L'Tovat Choshen. Remember, the Choshen is the breastplate. If you take the word Choshen, you can turn it into what? Nachash. He says, I'm here, the reason why I'm putting the Choshen is to rectify what the Nachash did. And by the way, we know that once we rectify what the Nachash did, once we do the total rectification, we get into another gematria, which is Mashiach. Nachash, Choshen, Mashiach, it's all the same gematria, it's all connected. So now we can see, what is the Kohen Gadol doing? What is he doing? He's fixing Chet Adam HaRishon. He's trying to bring us back to our spiritual clothing that we used to have in order to rectify the sin that was created by the snake. How? Through the Choshen, and eventually will yield Mashiach.
How does it yield Mashiach? The Nachash?
Because we bring it back to how it used to
I thought
be.
it was something with
Because we know, because remember, the Nachash embedded Zohama, the spiritual impurity in the world. Remember, there was a time where the world had a different reality. It completely changed after that day. So we see that the Kohen Gadol, I think as Moises mentioned before, is something that he wore those clothes only at a specific time when he went into where? Kodesh HaKodashim. When he was serving in certain times in Bet HaMikdash. We know that before Aharon was able to go into the Mikdash, he had to go through a whole process. But we know that before that, who was the one that was dealing with the Mishkan, put it up together, and took it apart? Moshe. How's it that Moshe didn't have any of these clothes when he was in there? How come Moshe didn't have any of this, the breastplate, the choshen, the ephod? Obviously, this is something that is necessary for this avodah. How do you touch all these things? How do you say all these words if you don't have the bgadim, if you don't have the kelim? So Shla Kadosh says, Moshe Rabbeinu haya yechol likanes lekodesh hakodeshim bechol et. Moshe Rabbeinu at any given time was able to go, not just one time a year, anytime. Tuesday, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, Moshe is in Kodesh HaKodeshim. That's not a problem. Why? והיה יכול לשמש בעבודת המקדש בשבעת ימי המילואים בחלוק לבן. And as a matter of fact, the 7 days where he was dealing with the Mishkan, putting it up and taking it apart, putting it up and taking it apart, the entire time, you know what he was wearing? Chaluk lavan, a white tunic, finish. Nothing more, nothing less. Why would that be? ואפילו בלי בגדי כהונה, none of the garments that the Kohanim wear, not even the basic 4 that we said earlier. And why would that be? כי גופו היה קדוש בלי זוהמת הנחש. משה רבנו got to the level of purity that his body was like before the sin of Adam HaRishon.
Wow.
The Zohama was not in him. And he had levush b'chinat kutnot or. Moshe Rabbeinu had the status of kutnot or. The whole world kutnot or with iron, like leather. He had the status of kutnot or. That his spiritual his spiritual garments or spiritual level was as if he was before Adam Rishon, and he had that status of or, pure. Ki Adam Rishon lifnei achet. As he lived the reality like before the original sin. Moshe Rabbeinu had a body, had a neshama like Adam Rishon before the sin. So, nice, very good. Kohanim, Kohen Gadol, Moshe Rabbeinu, Isha Elokim, half man, half angel. What does that mean to me today? Monday night here in Aventura. Do my clothing have any power?
Yeah.
And does this jacket make me fly? Huh? Can my belt clear my thoughts?
The gartel does. Gartel.
Gartel?
Yes.
What if you're not Chabadnik? What's it going to be? Do our clothing have any meaning today? Do our clothing have any meaning today? Do our clothing have any spiritual powers today?
Yes.
Yes and no.
Tzitzit? It's a mitzvah. I like to call it a bulletproof vest. Some people call it
If
tzitzit.
person addressed you, it's give power, spiritual power.
Yes and no.
So the answer is,
Man, saving, man.
Has an
Man
intention.
sitting-
the answer is that they do have power.
It's not going to give you
A woman and a man who dressed in tzniut do have a special protection. A tzitzit does have a special protection, there's no question. But when we talk about spiritual clothing, and especially on the level that we just discussed, I'm expecting a little bit more. A little bit more. If Bigdei Kehuna is spiritual clothing, I wanna know if there's such a thing as spiritual clothing for me.
I think that if you have separate clothing for Shabbat, that's a
There is such a concept that the ones for Shabbat on a higher level, don't mix them up, otherwise they lose in their status. Yes,
That's
but the question is spiritual clothing, Bigdei Kehuna. Do I have the option for spiritual clothing myself? Before we go into it, I just want to do. I saw another beautiful Gemara that I want to share with you that has to do with Moshe and that has to do with clothing and a little Rabbi Nachman from Breslov. So I want to share it with you before we answer our big question. It says in Masechet Brachot on the 62nd page on the second side. They say, Kol hamevazeh begadim, sof eno nehena mehem. It says anybody who disgraces their clothes at the end will not benefit from them, will not enjoy them. And Rabbi Nachman Mebreslov says in Likutei Etzot, he says, Tzarich lishmor me'od et habgadim shelo yivazeh otam. You have to protect your clothing a lot. You have to be very, very careful not to disrespect your clothing. Rak leshomram hetev miktamim v'lichluch. And it says, and protect them from not getting dirty and not getting stained. Ki habgadim be'atzmam hem danim et ha'adam. Because the clothing themselves, they judge the person. Imagine, your pants take you to court. Your shirt takes you to court. Your jacket takes you to court. I'll read it again. כי הבגדים בעצמם הם דנים את האדם אם אינו מכבדם כראוי. The clothing judge a person if they don't get treated properly. וכל מי שהוא גדול ביותר צריך לשמור את הבגדים ביותר. Anybody who's on a higher level, more honorable, he has to make sure to honor his clothes in a higher level. כי מי כל מי שגדול יותר מדקין עמו יותר. Because anybody who's on a higher level, they're more particular and meticulous with them in regards to honoring their clothes. Dehainu, the clothing of a person, osim imo tova gedola me'od. They do a big favor with a person. לא רק שמכסים את כל איבריו ומונעים ממנו בושה וחרפה. It's not only that they cover your body and they keep you warm and they prevent you from embarrassing yourself for walking in the street naked. You're covered. אלא הם גם מעניקים לו הרבה כבוד. Also, they give you a lot of honor. If you look, respectable, you walk into a room, they're going to give you honor because of the way you're dressed. As we saw in Masechet Shabbat on the 113th page, on the first side, it says over there, Rabbi Yochanan, we would speak to his clothing and he would tell them, Mechabedai. He would take off his clothes and he says, oh, Mechabedai. And he would put the ones that give me honor. He would speak to his clothing and thank you for giving me honor. Why? Because you walk into a room and you're not in a tank top and flip flops. You have a nice jacket, a nice tie. People are treating you like a mensch. Oh, thank you because of the way I look. Because of you, they're treating me nicely. Thank you for offering me that honor because of the clothing, right? Like for example, even if right now, somebody walks through that door and he walks in and he's wearing a super nice red velvet cape and he's got a real fancy hat and he's got all these fancy things, we would look what we'd say, oh, he's honorable. Why? Maybe he's a nobody. But the clothes make us think. Like we said, the clothes make you think. Same thing over here. The Rabbi Yochanan says, look how people treated me because of my clothing. Mechabedai. He speaks to them, the ones that offer me honor because I wear you. You have to be grateful and respectful of your clothing. And anybody who disrespects their clothing or mistreats their clothing, he's kofir tova. What's kofir tova? He's an ingrate. And because of that, they judge him in the heavens. So you come into the house, you take your shirt, you throw it on the floor, and then, or you go to take a shower, you put your pants on the floor, you step on it, this and that. The pants goes into the shower, he stepped on me. He threw me on the ground. He's wearing me all day long. Everybody's looking at him saying, oh, I love your Zara jacket. Oh, what are those shoes? Where'd you get them? And all of a sudden, he treats me like that. They go to the Shamayim and they open up a din on him. Could you imagine? How you have to be respectful of your clothes. And all this comes from Mitzad Hakarat HaTov. That you have to be grateful and be grateful even for things that are inanimate. That we learned this from Moshe Rabbeinu. That he didn't want to hit the rock, not the rock. He didn't want to hit the sand. He didn't want to hit the it's a river. Oh, it's sand. Hakarat HaTov. That sand saved me. That ye'or saved me. I'm not going to disrespect it. Similarly, the clothes that honor us, we don't disrespect.
I think I heard something amazing from you with the bread. Why do we cover it?
Also,
because we give it respect before the wine, because it's supposed to be blessed before.
Not to be embarrassed that we're giving honor to the wine before we give unto
the bread like this.
The king of all foods. It's a very good. You have to know how to treat bread. You have to learn. If you don't know, learn how to treat bread. Breadcrumbs. Go see what people do for breadcrumbs. Yeah. Nevertheless, he says when a person comes home, take off your clothes in the bare minimum. Put it on a chair, not on the floor, and of course put it on a hanger and hang it up. It's a big chizuk. You got to hear this because sometimes you grow up sloppy. You grow up like a.
Sharone, it's also special order how to dress up, how to undress.
There is in Birkot HaShachar.
What about dirty clothes? You throw it into the hamper.
That's something else. But we have to throw it in the laundry. You have to throw it into the laundry. But over here we're saying how you have to have hakarat hatov for clothing. So I just wanted to mention that because I saw it. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful point. But let's go back to spiritual clothing. Bigdei keuna. Is there?
That shoe is supposed to be before getting married also.
Hashem, I caught you now.
Imagine, bro.
Yeah. So we said Bigdei Kehuna, the clothing of the Kohen, have spiritual powers. I want to know, do I have spiritual clothing now? Do we have other spiritual clothing? And the answer is yes. The spiritual clothing of our generation is mitzvot. I'm going to read to you an excerpt from a tefillah that you should say on a regular basis. If you have the ability to. But if not, I'm going to share with you what is told to us to be said every single day. We have in the beginning of a siddur a few supplications that it's interesting if you take your time to do it. It sets your head right. But look what we say on a regular basis. Also the L'Shem Yechud of the L'Shem Yechud of the Talit. Pay attention to what it says over there. It mentions exactly what I'm saying here. It says, look what we say every single day. Yehi Ratzon מלפניך השם אלוקיי ואלוקי אבותיי שתהיה בעזרי שאוכל להיזהר. We ask for Hashem to be to help us, that we should be careful. Help me to be careful. What? שלא אעבור היום ובכל יום על אחת משישה מצוות לא תעשה שיזהרתן מתורתך. Please help me. That should be careful today and every day not to transgress the 365 negative commandments that you warned us about them in the Torah. And שאוכל לקיים היום ובכל יום כל מצווה שתזדמן לפניי מן רמ"ח מצוות עשה שציוויתנו לעשות אותה. And please give me the ability to perform today and every day any single mitzvah that should come my way from the 248 positive commandments that you commanded us to perform. ומה שלא אוכל לקיים היום, and whatever I can't perform today, תצטרף מחשבתי הטובה כאילו עשית אותה במעשה. And any positive commandment that I'm not able to perform, please connect my thought that I wanted to perform it as if it was an action. We just learned that. Over here we say every day, I wanted to perform a mitzvah, I wasn't able to do it. Let my thought and action come together as if I performed it. And here it is. ועל ידי זה תעשה לבוש רוחני לנפשי, רוחי ונשמתי. And by me playing defense on the 365 negative and playing offense, performing the 248, let that create a garment, a spiritual garment for my soul, for my nefesh, ruach, neshama, the three parts of our soul, לרמ"ח איברים, to our 248 organs, shisa gidim aruchaniyim, and the 365 sinews, the spiritual. We're not talking about anything physical over here. Everything here is spiritual. ובזה יהיה לי חלוקה דרבנן בעולם הנשמות בגן עדן. And by doing that, I will have the spiritual robe called חלוקה דרבנן, the robe of the rabbis, בעולם הנשמות, in the world of the souls, in Gan Eden, in heaven. ולהתלבש בו בתחיית המתים, and that's what I should wear in the resurrection. לחיי העולם הבא, amen. Do you hear what I just read? We just said, well, in short, what we're saying over here is that let the mitzvot that I perform create a spiritual garment that's made from 248 and 365, so it'd be ready for me that after 120 years, when we go up to the Shamayim, what is it? There's something that my neshama could wear, and it's called Chalukah D'Rabbanan. And if I don't have it over there, the soul is going to be naked. Can you imagine being in the next world naked? So we said spiritual clothing. What is spiritual clothing? Okay, we learned Adam. Okay, we learned Kohen Gadol. Okay, now I'm telling you also have spiritual clothing. And how are they? You're the tailor. Each mitzvah is another piece in the garment. Every 365 that you don't do and every 248 that you do creates this Chalukah D'Rabbanan. I want to go a little bit deeper into it because I don't want to just like drop this and not give more depth to it. And I just want to open up your eyes to things that we do every single day. In Birkot HaShachar, every single day, if you have a siddur that's worth a little bit more than $10, you'll see this. It says, Baruch Ata Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, malbish arumim. We have a bracha in Birkot HaShachar. Hashem dress up the naked. If you go a little bit deeper, what does it say over there? She'albish v'chadesh nishmato belevush dekdusha nikra chashmal. He says that Hashem dress us, we're naked of mitzvot. Dress me up today, malbish arumim, dress me up with mitzvot. Why? Because we want to create spiritual clothing. And it gives us over here that this alivush de kedusha, this spiritual garment, It's called Hashmal. In Hebrew, Hashmal is electricity. But it's called Hashmal. I just want to say for the people in the room, Hashmal is also Chacham Sharone Lankry, for anyone wants to know. I think if I ever come out with a book, maybe I drop it like that.
Yeah?
If you want to get electrifying chidushim.
Who wants to connect tonight with?
Yeah, come get plugged into the
That's
Hashmal.
great.
That's a little milta d'vdichuta for you guys. After Malbish Arumim, the next one. The next beracha is what? Hanoten la ya'ef koach. What's on there? That you give the tired power. Why? I don't want to go to Minyan. I don't want to shake a lulav. I don't want to create my spiritual garment for Olam Haba. So you say, Hashem, please. I'm Malbish Arumim, I'm naked of mitzvot. Please also give me the koach, this world. It's like got me so demotivated to be a tzaddik. Please give me the power even to create these spiritual garments. That's what we're asking for in the morning. Malbish Arumim v'noten la'ef koach. Hashem, Malbish Arumim, dress me up. Please give me the mitzvot that will create the spiritual garment for Olam Haba. And give that noten la'ef koach. Give me the power because we're spiritually weak. Give me the power to want to do it. Or come to a class of Hashmal and we charge you up. We'll charge you up.
It's a great idea.
Okay. I wanted to strengthen this point. To show you many different places where this is brought. And this will give you some background to it. And you should understand that tonight's lesson is just another layer. It's like getting upgraded. It's just understanding how things work behind the scenes. Maybe we don't hear this all the time. Maybe we go to classes and we don't hear this. It's good to hear new things. It's good to understand that there's these things happening. Maybe this is what's going to motivate you to be a tzaddik. Maybe something, you don't know what's going to, that thing that's going to click. And when I saw this, I said, this now might be the most phenomenal class that we do, but it's good content. This is good shiurei Torah. This is good Torah learning. Because these are concepts that many people are not privy to. So here we go. The Zohar, Namatot Midvash brings in Mishpatim, בני אדם לא יודעים כמה גלגולים וכמה מעשים סתומים ותיקונים עושה הקדוש ברוך הוא עם נשמות ערומות שאין לנבוש חלוקת דרבנן. Look at this one line right now. People don't know how many reincarnations they had to come down and how many things that Kadosh Baruch Hu is trying to rectify with their soul because they came up to the heavens naked. Nothing. Where's your robe? No robe. So Kadosh Baruch Hu says, okay, I'll send you back again here, another Gilgul. Just come back with a robe in the closet so you can walk around and not be embarrassed. People are coming back over and over again. Why? Because they're going up and there's no Halukah Derabanan. They have nothing to wear. They went on a trip all the way to the next world and they brought no clothing. They're naked. En lahem levush shel Halukah Derabanan. They don't have this robe. Why? Lo asku b'Torah b'mitzvot. Shemehem nitken levush hanshama. He says they didn't learn Torah, they didn't perform mitzvot, and this is what creates this garment. This is what creates this Halukah Derabanan. Baruch Hashem, all of us over there have one, probably diamond studded. Baruch Hashem, we learned. Unbelievable one waiting for us. But imagine people that show up with nothing. You know what an embarrassment is for neshama that says I missed the mark. Everybody here is looking phenomenal, and the person has nothing to wear. Furthermore, ruchot arumim ha'olchim ba'olam ha'elyon. He says you have these neshamot walking around naked in the olam ha'elyon. There's no greater embarrassment than that for them. And he says, and because those people show up to the high heavens with no Torah, no mitzvot, they take the worlds in the heavens and they turn into din. All of a sudden, strict judgment is in the world. Why? People are showing up from the world of Asiyah, and they did nothing. They come from the world of action. They show up to the world, they did nothing. So the heavens get angry, and they said, okay, so Din, they're not doing their job. Judgment. Maybe if life becomes difficult, they'll do what they're supposed to do. Because when life is easy, they do nothing. And it continues to say, in Ramban, he says it very simply, Levush haneshama hu levush aviri. He says the spiritual garments that we're speaking about, it's not like something tangible that you can touch. It's like a see-through aviri, made from air. Haramban writes, "Halevush shel haneshama hu levush aviri betzurat guf," but it has, even though that you can't touch it, it's like made out of see-through soul material, right? But what is it? It has the shape of the person. Tzurat haguf, sheyesh lo yesodot shel kisui va'atifa, that it has the whole elements of covering a person's body. It has that shape. V'hu nikach chalukah d'Rabanan, and he says, he calls it also, and this airy spiritual garment that is in the shape of a person, that covers a person, is called chalukah d'Rabanan. Shehu malbush hatzadikim began Eden. Look what he says, that this is the clothing that the righteous wear in Gan Eden. Don't worry, you're tzadikim. You're also going to be there. Halevush shel haneshama ne'esa al yedei ha'or shel limud haTorah v'kiyum mitzvot. And he says, this spiritual garment, chalukah d'Rabanan, the way that it's made is through the light created by the Torah learning and the performance of the mitzvot. Oh Hashem, we pray every day. We bless for our food. We do acts of kindness. You're in the club. You already have a garment over there. Just now you're more in tune, you're more aware. Now you don't know if you don't want it to be just like linen or maybe cotton, right? You want it to look a little bit more chashub. Now that you know that it exists, right? You want it to be a black label. Or maybe over there it's white label, it's different. 21, it says, Began Eden ha'elyon, in the upper worlds, in the heavens, Ba'echal ha'nistar sheyeh malchut, is a hidden hall that is connected to malchut, to kingship. Mitatefet mitlabeshet neshama baruach. It says the neshama becomes covered up and adorned by neshama. The soul gets covered up by the ruach. Hamagbil ba neshama v'ruach. We know that. Remember, we said that the Jewish soul has 5 parts to it, called naranchi, nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya yechida. So it says in Gan Eden, you get the neshama and the ruach. The neshama gets the neshama gets the 2 parts of neshama and ruach. What's neshama and ruach? Neshama is nun, ruach is resh, which spells out the word ner, candle, right? Do you know the famous pasuk? Go ahead. Which one is it? Ner Hashem nishmat adam. The candle of God is the soul of the person. What's ner Hashem? The nefesh and the ruach enter the neshama. That is the nishmat adam. And that nishmat adam, when it goes up to the shamayim, what happened? It unites the nefesh and the ruach. It unites with the neshama, and it puts on the spiritual clothing. Furthermore, last one.
Is this the nail, like the nail covering? Talking about the covering? Like...
No, not the nail covering. The nail covering is what originally covered our skin in the beginning of time, and then everything got turned into skin. It's a spiritual garment that is not like tangible. Aura. It has no, you touch it, your fingers go through
it. It's like an aura.
Like an aura, you can call it. Here's a couple of Gemarot and Zohar that is very interesting. It says, Maaseh Rabbi Yehuda Saba, Sheru lo b'chalom or gadol. It says there was a rabbi called Rabbi Yehuda Saba, and they showed him in the dream a huge light. And he asked, Mazeh? ואמרו לו, זה המלבוש שלך מן המצוות שקיימת, המוכן לך לעולם הבא. So in his dream, he sees this big light, and he asks, what's this big light? He says, that's your spiritual garments that you created with all your performance of mitzvot that's waiting for you when you come to עולם הבא. מן היום ההוא והלאה היה שמח שמחת הנפש. From that day on, he was happy for the rest of his life. See that it was revealed to him already in the dream. In a different place it says, יום אחד נתרגש בדעתו יהודה הזקן, ריש לקיש היה מתבונן בדעתו בענייני העולם העליון ונחרד על כל דברים שעוברים על האדם בפטירתו, וכדי להניח דעתו, הראו לו בחלומו צורת לבוש אחד רוחני בצלמו כדמותו, שנעשה מאור חזק שהאיר לארבע רוחות העולם. He says there was one time Yehuda Zaken, he was thinking about things, and Resh Lakish also was thinking about things that had to do with the upper worlds. And he was very disturbed about all the things that are passing on a person, all the trials, the tribulations in the time that the soul goes through when it passes away. You know, it talks about what happens to the neshama when a person passes away. There's a lot of crazy things that are happening in that moment, in that week, in that situation. So, kedei laniach da'ato, also in order to calm him down, they came to him in a dream and they showed him a spiritual garment that was exactly like his image, that was created from a huge light that was illuminating to 4 corners of the world. They said, what's this super bright illuminated piece of clothing that I'm looking at? They told him, this is your clothing. This is waiting for you. This is what you're going to be wearing when you come over here and live in the Garden of Eden. So we see that when we're talking about this is something that has been obviously well documented and spoken about and is a real thing. It's not just something that we're hoping that it's a real thing, like something that we say for a chizuk. It's a real thing. You have a spiritual garment in the heaven waiting for you, and that's what you're going to be wearing in the afterlife. So, in conclusion, when we talk about spiritual clothes, we spoke about Adam Harishon and how it atones for the 7 Noahide laws and the 1 instruction of not to eat me'etz hadat tov v'ra, and that HaKohen HaGadol came to atone for those sins, al avonot im abgadim, which each one atoned for something else. Today we do our own work. We take our bigdei or, which is Chalukat Rabbanan. We also have that option, but it's a different option. It's not the option that Adam Rishon had, and it's not the option that Aharon HaKohen had. We have the option of just being good, simple, plain Jews, playing defense on 365 mitzvot lo ta'aseh, being proactive about 248 mitzvot aseh. That in the Shamayim is putting together our spiritual garments, that after 120 years when we go up to the Shamayim, we have a Halukah Derabanan. If you never knew it, now you know it. Now you know what happens after you pass, and what happens and what you look like. And it's very important that we go up there and not show up naked, because the people that show up naked have to come back. The problem with coming back is that in Ikvita de Mashiach, who knows if there's enough time for you to come back again. In the time of Mashiach, the clock is ticking. You know, maybe 200, 300 years ago, you might have enough, a whole lifetime to get things right. Now that Mashiach is around the corner, who says you're going to have enough time to get it right? So, you know, word to the wise, get it right now. Get it right in this Gilgul, in this lifetime. Don't procrastinate. We said in the mitzvot of in the Tanya class, we were talking about the mitzvot. How many are left? So we said there's 222. 222 of mitzvot lo ta'aseh, which is 222 that you just have to be careful not to perform them, and only 48 mitzvot aseh. It's not so hard. Nowadays, there's only 222 lo ta'aseh and 48 mitzvot aseh. That from just performing them, you'll be able to create your spiritual garments. It's not even 613 anymore for the generation that we're in. So Be'ezat Hashem, that we make Hashem happy with our Torah learning. And that our Torah learning and our performance of the mitzvot create the Chalukah Derabanan. And that Be'ezat Hashem, we merit to the coming of Mashiach, B'mehera B'yameinu, the building of the Bet HaMikdash, B'chesed B'rachamim. And the Be'ezat Hashem, I'm looking forward to see your fancy robe in the Shamayim. So like that we can really make a Kadosh Baruch Hu happy that we did our job while we're here. Hashem vayech otchem, esameach otchem. Be'ezat Hashem, we'll see you on Wednesday for the Tanya class and Thursday the Tefillah class, very special classes as well.